Hi, I want to make a video on something. I was actually going to group up with something in my previous video I made, and it's about your perception and the difference between your feelings and the things you're perceiving. I think it comes down to the difference between your perception and the actual feelings that you're having. Just to make sure, I want to make sure I can understand this. Maybe it's your perception, your feeling of the perception rather than the thing you're perceiving. Um, And, I guess it can come down to the thing you're perceiving. It's the feeling you have as opposed to the thing that the thing has an effect on you. But obviously, the effect is everything that we're doing. We're just a reciprocation machine. Everything we do, every interaction we have is just a reciprocation with something else. I react a certain way. That's how every thought's function. Obviously, if it was just darkness, I would only have darkness to contemplate. In many cases, obviously, there's a slight chance that my mind might wander if I was just a brain in a jar. Obviously, I have my imagination, but your imagination is based on your experience and things that you can understand. Like your paradoxes and your conundrums, your imagination is based on a bunch of things like time. I'm time traveling, even though you don't make the most sense about of all the paradoxes and all the things that don't make sense. You're just building upon a bunch of different things that, a bunch of contradictions that shouldn't happen based on the fact that you can just create simple contradictions based on simple thought. It's sort of like recognizing you're a hypocrite, but not recognizing it, not realizing all sorts of flaws. You see something, but you don't understand exactly what you're seeing. Something passes by, you didn't notice something on the right side. It's all of these mind gap things that you're constantly a victim of, and there's only so much you can do to avoid those things. So all we are is we're interacting with the environment. Every thought we have is based on an interaction we've had, previous interaction based on experience, and in many cases just mixing those ideas up. And there's a vague chance of being a brain in a jar, just seeing darkness. Obviously, the imagination, the color of imagination you may have, having and living in your head is based on your previous experience, dreaming or this or the other thing. But it's based on previous experience and things that you've seen or experienced, and taking those experiences and warping them to create an imagination or something like a dream. But then you need that warped imagination to have something like a dream to begin with. So it's one of those things where it requires an interaction. It requires your senses, and your life is experienced through your senses, any sense you have. In your brain, since it doesn't feel physically, you're not going to be having any of those senses, and since you're not going to have any of your other senses, you're not going to be really doing much in the way of interacting other than darkness, or like an example of a girl being locked up in her room and having no interaction, human interaction or interaction whatsoever, not hearing language, hearing anything, shitting in your own pants, doing all sorts of things, having no proper interaction. You're just going to be stuck in la la land, and you're not going to be doing much of anything. But obviously, we're just a self-feedback mechanism. We're just interacting. We take that in and we function based on how how we were meant to react. But it just because you have something to react to doesn't mean you're just going to react based on the thing. You're reacting a certain way based on your predispositions. Obviously, you're not just going to react, okay, that has something, it has an effect on you. Obviously, what it does has an effect on how you are predisposed to react to a specific circumstance like that. So you're going to react however you're going to react to that circumstance, and that's going to be the outcome that happens to be your reaction. And it requires something that's already innately in here for you to react a certain way based on the interaction you have with something out there. So it's something that's a force feedback regardless. So yeah, it's something that exists as a mechanism that requires a um, mutual predisposition, or at least on your side at the very least. Obviously, there's a predisposition to a rock falling. The predisposition to the rock falling was it was on the edge of a cliff. It was allowed to fall a distance, and that was its predisposition. But psychologically, there needs to be a predisposition based on all the chemicals and the interactions and the synapses and how you're going to react to begin with. Your genetics, all those things, predispositions based on your circumstance. So yeah, those are the circumstances that we all have is predispositions. Yeah, so it's a mutual thing. But I guess maybe another way I can look at this is, I guess you can almost in a way separate your perception and what you're feeling from your feelings from what you're perceiving. So you can have a different feeling. You can be perceiving something a certain way, but your feelings could still be negative. You can still intellectually understand that life suck, but you can be smoking some pot or whatever, or getting buzzed off your alcohol addiction, and take some cough medication or whatever it is. You know, feel good. You get a little buzz. You feel a little good. Or whatever. You're feeling good, but you can still understand that life sucks. Whatever it is, you get a good feeling, and you realize, but you still intellectually understand that life is futile and it doesn't serve any function, and any function it serves is based on our projections of value that we have, and it's only based on a negative that we're fighting an uphill battle towards. We're always pushing the boulder up just to have it, the relief of seeing it roll back down so we can push it right back up. We're seeing our work in progress. We're seeing ourselves right back to work. Right when we push it up, we're right back to seeing, oh, I'm going right back to work as I finish. So you're never done working. There's always a problem. Once you're done with one problem, you get your satisfaction. Right when you're getting your satisfaction, you're right on to dealing with another problem. And that's the only thing we're doing. So that's the function that we're serving. And I guess it's about recognizing the difference between, there are distinctions between what you intellectually understand, and you can still feel like crap about it, but you can still feel kind of good. And I guess that comes down to different like interactions that your neurology has, and I guess it can turn into a neurology video or something, where you still understand it, but you still feel kind of good, and recognizing the difference between your perception, your feelings, and your understanding, your intellectual understanding of reality. So you can be perceiving pretty good. You can see things. You can be feeling good, perceiving good. Actually, I think you can be feeling good, but you can be perceiving negativity, or you can still perceive and understand. You can intellectually understand that, and that can change your perception as a whole into understanding the life. And I guess perception is, I guess you can add as a thing between your feelings and your intellectual understanding. Or you can base, I mean, I guess you can, all those things, your understanding, your perception, and your feelings, they all rely on each other. It takes the other two to make the other one. Your perception relies on your feelings and your understanding, because your understanding helps you understand things, but your perception is your feelings and your understanding as a whole. You perceive something a certain way, but your perception, your understanding can kind of vaguely create your feelings or affect your feelings, even though you're feeling a certain way, but that creates your full perception. And your perception creates your feelings, because your feelings is how you feel, and you're perceiving something a certain way based on your understanding, and and I already went over understanding, and so on and so forth. You understand the idea, and they rely on each other. They need the other one to exist. Sort of like the idea of all good people that die, not all good people that die young are good, but all good people die young, or something like that. One of those things. Um, it's sort of like finding a way of categorizing, but that's almost saying like they can't be categorized. Sort of like perception can be understanding, but understanding can't be perception. But all of them rely generally on those things. Your feeling relies on perception, understanding. Your understanding relies on your perception and feeling, and your understanding relies on your perception and feeling, and your I'm forgetting. Yeah, but they rely on each other, and they all need each other to make the other one work, generally speaking. But I think perception is the general thing, and your understanding is very important, and your feelings are very important. But your understanding is the thing that helps your feelings feel good, and that the understanding is that the feelings are the only thing that mean anything. So once you understand that, your intelligence doesn't have much meaning other than solving the problems that are going to come your way, and the feelings you have, and the perception that helps your intellectual understanding as a whole, and how you can perceive things as a whole and have that confusion, that cognitive dissonance. I think your perception as a whole is what creates that, maybe, if anything. But understanding those things, you can still understand those things can come into conflict. So maybe it's not necessarily feeling, it's you can still understand that life sucks, but feel good, and maybe it's not, yeah, maybe it's your perception. The perception's making you feel a certain way. Maybe not reality, but maybe reality is making you feel a certain way, and it's not your perception because you feel good, but you understand reality still sucks. Something along those lines. But I want to make this over before 10 minutes, and I got the point across good enough. I think you get the idea. It's make the most of this statement. Maybe it's your perception feeling, not the thing you're perceiving. It's either more or less.